for life.
But for us, we think that the cloud creates opportunities for us to sort of optimize and create efficiency in a lot of the supply chains that have been challenged by new consumer expectations and new consumer experiences. So this is an industry where rates of change are massive, and they're different on different planes. Consumer electronics devices are innovating at a certain pace. Consumer expectations, which I also take issue with that earlier comment, I think consumer expectations are at the front of innovation, that we innovate in response to consumer expectations. And the challenge for media today in the digital domain is to accelerate the pace of innovation to keep abreast of what their consumers want. So today, if we look at the industry, we're looking at an industry where there is increasing complexity to be able to deliver on the promise of digital to the broad variety of consumers, their devices, and ensure that the quality of the content and the quality of the experience is of the highest order. So in order to do that, we obviously at Akamai, and I'm going to promise you I'm not going to do any math, we started our company solving a lot of the problems around internet congestion using some pretty sophisticated algorithms. Today, we think that that platform that we've created, which constitutes now, I believe, over 90,000 servers worldwide, is the platform that allows for the next generation of those innovative media experiences to develop. To do it, we need to ensure that the quality remains high, the workflow is simplified, you're able to do it at scale, so global audiences can engage with global brands, or the niche content that the diaspora may be interested in receiving, wherever a population may disperse across the world. And with premium content, we have to do it in a way that's highly secure, so that the content, once it enters the digital domain, isn't compromised. Let's go forward as opposed to back. So, we've all seen this, right? This concept of, I want it anytime, I want it anywhere, I want it now. These are the consumer expectations that we as an industry need to be able to meet as we enter into this sort of digital frame of media innovation. And really, we see this sort of convergence in consumer expectation, right? The grand vision, the grand dream for consumers was to be able to do what they want, wherever they have it, and to be able to access the deepest possible library and consume it in a way that, to the consumer, the device doesn't necessarily matter, right? This concept of the TV being the central, sort of the nexus of premium content consumption is going away. We're now looking at a world in which the TV set is just a big-ass screen with a tuner, right? And it's only special in its historical context because there's so many other new devices that are starting to sort of percolate throughout that landscape. So the other piece of that, though, is that the devices also ask media companies, platform providers, to provide innovative experiences that meet the unique requirements of that device, that leverage the device and its central characteristics. Keep going backwards. And we're seeing, obviously, some pretty amazing uptick around device-driven consumption. If you look back into 2 years ago, we were well under a petabyte per month of delivery to end-user devices. We now see that these are going to massive, massive scale. And this is an incredible number. When we get to late 2014, we see that a significant, not majority, but a very significant component of media consumption will be device-driven. So we have internet content going to TV devices. We have over-the-top content going to multiple platforms. And we have a sort of an implicit threat to programmers and to content and to pay TV operators implicit in all this, which is that consumers are toying with the concept of cord cutting, of just taking the content that's readily available over the top through lower cost subscription services like Netflix, et cetera, in North America, and using that as the primary means by which they purchase and consume the content to which they're entitled. That's a threat. It's an interesting threat. And in order to counter that threat, we need business models to innovate, right? We need to be able to monetize in different ways. We need to have platforms that support that monetization innovation, right? That's the opportunity. That's the digital opportunity that matters. And so in North America, we're seeing these very interesting sort of applications of our network to solve some of these problems. We've got direct distribution. We do huge volumes of traffic around March Madness, which is the NCAA college basketball tournament in North America, where real interesting innovation is happening at the player level, where we're seeing social and interesting multi-screen inside the player presentation layer innovation that's pretty fascinating. We're seeing also, obviously, the concept of entitlements. I think we heard this sort of touched on earlier, where if I am a pay TV subscriber and I'm subscribing to a certain tier of content, I want to be able to leverage the entitlements that I subscribe to across all platforms at all times. HBO, obviously leading the market in some of the innovation associated with that. Comcast, a big North American cable operator, just released an iPad application that's pretty fascinating. It allows you to control and discover content that's available through their traditional VOD channels, as well as being able to consume the content to which you're entitled directly on that device and move from destination to destination. We're supporting that in a couple of different ways that I'll touch on in a second. And then you get into how do we bundle, how do we market, how do we promote this content in a way that really leverages the digital, the prospect of digital. And then the studios, seeing all of this innovation, have also been challenged. And how do you create a digital product that's going to be as innovative as is possible across digital platforms, but as consistent as the experience that consumers have become accustomed to with DVD and with Blu-ray disc? We're really active in one of these, in a consortium called DECE, the Digital Entertainment Content Ecosystem, that's bringing a very interesting platform to market in North America and then globally thereafter, called Ultraviolet, which is essentially a cloud-based rights locker that allows for consumers to purchase content from any retailer that's Ultraviolet enabled, and then subsequently being able to download or stream that content to any of their devices, wherever they happen to go. We think that this is an incredible innovation in home entertainment that just hasn't been there to date. So it's another set of how do we keep a pace with consumer expectations as a media business. And then in North America, sort of laying in on top of all of these cloud-based models, is this concept of TV everywhere, which I think is very interesting. We really fundamentally believe that the future of TV is everywhere. It's about being able to consume on devices that to which I have paid and subscribed, independent of any technology decision that me as a consumer has to make. We've been working very closely with some of our operator partners, who are also strategic partners on our network side, to start to build out a layer of services that supports this business model innovation. This gets a little bit, and try to keep this as high level as possible. But the idea around TV everywhere is how do I authenticate an end subscriber, and then how do I subsequently authorize that subscriber to access the content they paid for? So if you think about a programmer like Discovery, for example, and this is just the rhetorical Discovery Network, they obviously have significant material deals in place with the pay TV operators around retrans and carriage. They want to make sure that any subscriber of that pay TV operator has paid for their subscription before they're able to access the full library of content either direct from Discovery or through one of those applications that the operators are bringing forward and bringing to market on tablet devices. There's a lot of technical complexity associated with this. Programmers have to integrate with operators. Operators have to integrate with programmers. Consumers are faced with sort of a multiplicity of interfaces and setup, login, credential assertion. This is a problem. That's a mess. I don't even like looking at it. So for Akamai, what we tried to do is figure out how do we take our network and sort of serve as a proxy where we can take the trust of asserted credentials and reduce the barriers to access for consumers so that they can seamlessly move between websites, direct brand engagements with content programmers, or also direct inside of their pay TV operator platforms without having to go through the an onerous process of login and validation. So from that mess, that sort of stringy spaghetti nest, we serve as a proxy, or we started to work inside, are on this concept of identity services. Let us know the individual. Let the individual assert him or herself. And then subsequently, let's offer, based on us being able to integrate in with the cable TV operator, let us be able to offer a significantly added value set of services to that end consumer in a very simplified way. So just like Ultraviolet is trying to simplify the value proposition associated with digital home entertainment in the studio domain, we're trying to simplify this process also for partners on the pay TV operator and programmer side. So it's a single sign-on, smart identity discovery. You know, and this is a cool one, it's the continuity of viewing that's been promised for so long, where I could start a movie on my set-top box, I could get in a cab and be able to pick it up at the same iframe on a tablet device, and then being able to go to a stored or cached piece of that content wrapped in a DRM and watch the movie for the rest of its duration on the plane. And then moreover, because I've started to assert this individual relationship with the consumer through the assertion of those identities, or their identity, I also understand attributes about them that allows me to provide back to the content programmer or to the cable TV operator a whole different set of analytics that have been available to date from someone like Nielsen, for example, indicating how viewing habits change based on bandwidth, based on available content, based on device consumption, based on geography, based on a whole different set of sort of macro level attributes that just haven't been clearly available as consumers have worked through this sort of fragmented device landscape. Just like we're trying to get to that unit of one as it relates to the unique and individualized presentation of content to an end consumer, the same is true for the device landscape. We want to be able to provide to our business partners that same conceptual single view, single pane of glass through which we can look at all content consumption. So, you know, when we get into this concept of TV everywhere, how do we support it? You know, these are the sort of basic building blocks of identity services, create single sign-on, facilitate viewing continuity, all of which we think are best developed and executed at the network plane. These are complex technical problems that you don't necessarily want somebody who makes great movies to have to tend significant attention to. We think that the network itself should be smart, scalable, and future-proof, so that as these technical decisions have to be made, they don't have to be made by the people who make great content. So, you know, today, is this a problem? You know, there's some problems of scale. There's these questions, these, you know, nebulous questions about, can the internet manage all of this media consumption? Today we do about 2.4 terabytes per second or terabits per second, excuse me, of content consumption over IP across a pretty big landscape of people spending a pretty significant portion of their time watching movies, video over the internet. We anticipate that within a 5-year period, we're going to get to the world of 2.1 billion viewers, 2 hours of video daily consumed over the top or on a you know, connected device at a very, very high bit rate, high definition content. So you see this jumping by many orders of magnitude in terms of the overall drag on the internet. We saw this certainly with the World Cup, where we saw massive, massive volumes of distributed worldwide traffic from multiple operators being delivered down to the end consumer, where we peaked out, I think, at 1.6 terabits per second. That's a massive amount of traffic, like more than the entire internet volume, basically, in 2000. And then we're also seeing all of that content being delivered using an adaptive bitrate technology, whether that's HLS, the HTTP live streaming application, or whether that's through Silverlight or Flash, all of which really running off the Akamai network for us, means that we're able to sort of see, based on varying bandwidth conditions in various countries, we talked about this here a little bit earlier, we're delivering the best quality experience independent of whatever those bandwidth constraints happen to be. So for us, we continue to go back to that concept of how do I ensure that the network is the source of innovation, the network solves complex technology problems, and that allows for innovations at the presentation layer, innovations in content, and innovations in the way consumers, brands, and content providers all engage in an intelligent way, in an individualized way with one another. And by using a network that's future-proof, you're not subject to having to respond to those disparate planes, those disparate rates of change across multiple planes of engagement. So, we take this further into simplifying workflows, so we get to a place where we have one single asset pushed into the network, and then being able to serve whatever the end device request happens to be. Again, simplifying the supply chain workflows and lowering costs so that more content can be more readily made available across IP delivery planes. So we're in a place now where we really believe that the future of true individualized media consumption is going to be delivered over IP. It's going to be delivered in a secure way. And the innovation that we see from our content partners, we're just going to rely pretty heavily on the network in order to be able to do that. So we're really proud. Hopefully, I think we have a fair number of partners in this room today. Really proud to help facilitate that innovation. So if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to give me a ring or drop by our Singapore office. And thank you.
For what?